Okay, there we go. So we are officially being recorded, and welcome to everyone. Excited to have you all here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. Excited to kick off yet another Salesforce for Insurance community group meeting today. Thank you again for all of you to take your time out of your busy schedules. We have some really amazing speakers that are here today. Excited to have them here. And then also all of you who are joining us throughout this next hour. Love to hear feedback from you. Just excited that you're here and really excited to start succeeding together. So let's go ahead and start succeeding. Just a quick introduction. So we'll do introductions of the group leaders, and then we will introduce our lovely presenters. I'm going to have a group discussion on user adoption best practices. We'll have them present and then do additional discussion because, of course, we always want to hear back from our constituencies. So with that, Alexis, I'm going to have you kind of just say hello really quick.
Alexis Kuhn from Zimmer Biomet. I'm the CRM Salesforce Project Manager.
And I am Danielle Lappy, Silverline consultant, and I'm a principal of Insurance Solutions. So we're so excited to have you here. Just a couple of really quick announcements in regards to what we've got going on here from a housekeeping perspective. We've got a lot of moving parts and pieces, and we've got people moving around, and I'm so excited for a couple of these announcements. So without further ado, Alexis, I'm so excited that you actually transitioned your position over from one company to another, and are unfortunately for the insurance world leaving the insurance, but still staying in the Salesforce ecosystem. So you have now decided to kind of spread your wings a little bit and move on into leading a Women in Tech group leader. So congratulations on that. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
I know that the women out there in Fort Wayne and all their allies in and around there really have a great leader in you. And I'm excited to see what you've got going on in the future. And I would be happy to come and join in any meetings that you have if you have a virtual aspect to them at any point. Obviously, it's going to be a little hard for me to travel from Tampa to Fort Wayne via, but
Right.
Really excited about this. This is fantastic for you, and I know that you've been working hard towards this. So thank you so much for bringing me into the fold. Originally, Alexis and I were on projects together, actually, when she came, and after she took over the group, because it had been stagnant for a little bit, she asked me if I would join, and now it's kind of passing the torch along to me. So I just appreciate all that you've done for the group, revitalizing it, and bringing me into the fold and giving me this opportunity as well has been fantastic. So thank you so much. And obviously you and I will be keeping in touch. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who would also like to continue to stay in touch with you. So anyone who's in the greater Fort Wayne area, make sure that you get over to see Alexis and her Women in Technology. It's not just for women, but we got our allies there too. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, as Danielle mentioned, she's going to take over the reins, but I promise you're in good hands because she was selected as 2020 Salesforce MVP, which is a really, really, really great accomplishment. I had the pleasure of submitting a nomination for Danielle, and I can just say that we've only worked together for a year, but even in that past year, she's been an incredible mentor to me. And my previous company partnered with Silverline for an implementation, and Danielle was a rock star with her team who came in and really did some incredible stuff. And then from there, she got promoted to principal of insurance at Silverline, and so it just made sense for her to co-lead with me. And she just continues to elevate. So I had my first Dreamforce experience last year, and she did a really great job of walking me through that. She's always really been uplifting and sharing the ropes of, oh, you could do this, and check out this, and did you know you could do this? And, you know, that's the Ohana, as they say, within Salesforce, and really helping one another and sharing tips. And it's very open-handed with everyone, with knowledge and sharing, and Danielle encompasses that in so many ways. So I know this is just going to take off and open even more doors for her. And we're very, very excited. She's the only one at Silverline with this MVP award. So I know her company is very proud of her, and everyone who knows her, it's well overdue. So thank you for all that you do for others outside of this community too. It's really great. So
Hey,
that
thank you very much.
yeah. So now I get to introduce you to two more rock stars. So in Dreamforce 19, had the pleasure of attending a session by Skye Tyler and Yves Stewart, who were complete rock stars. Of all the sessions I attended, this was absolutely one of my favorites. And they took on a different approach to training. Usually you hear a lot of talk about training for Salesforce and getting your users up and running with that. And they took it to a next level about being a coach, and how that really, being a coach for your team helps take it to the next level. And they're going to walk you through some really great examples of what that looks like and how to do it. But it was a way that I'd never thought of things before. And it definitely gave me a lot of tools in my toolkit to take back to our company. So as we met with different people in the community group while we were out there, we said, hey, what are some topics that you guys want to cover this year? A lot of you guys were saying user adoption is a big piece. And you know, anyone can roll it out, and we all know Salesforce is awesome, but how do our users actually find value and enjoy it? And so some of this stuff is just across the entire industry. And then there's some nuggets too that we're gonna, Danielle's gonna help pull in that are insurance specific. So we are very, very much honored to have these women with us today. Eve is actually on a cruise and taking time out to talk with us because she's a rock star like that. So without further ado, I will let these ladies introduce themselves to you.
Great. If I could have you stop sharing and I'll share my screen. All right. Can everybody see the put me in coach slide? Great. All right, Eve, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yves Stewart. I'm a Salesforce consultant with Slalom. I have 4.5 years in the ecosystem. I'm out of the Houston, Texas market, and I'm excited about being able to share this topic with you. Just a little brief history about myself. I am an accidental admin that took over the role for an oil and gas company, and I was hesitant at first because I didn't think I was that techie person, but in that short amount of time I realized that this was my passion, something I love to do, and have been able to do some great things with that. Since then, I've become a co-leader with the Houston User Group. I also lead our Military Trailhead Houston group, and I'm an active member of just our Ohana family in the Houston market, as well as just globally with everyone. So you see my social media handles on LinkedIn, as well as with Twitter, and I look forward to connecting with each and every single person.
Great, and my name is Skye Tyler. I work at Exponent Partners on their custom Exponent case management product, which is geared towards human services organizations. I've been in the Salesforce space for 5 years now, working specifically with nonprofit organizations. I'm also a big advocate for the military community in Salesforce, working with Salesforce Military, formerly known as VetForce, as well as the Marivis Foundation. Previously a nonprofit user group co-leader. So, you know, understanding the time and effort that it's taken Danielle and Alexis to really make these kinds of events happen. And also just kind of a Salesforce nerd, in case like you couldn't tell from my office. Love all things Salesforce and happy to connect with anyone and help out in your Salesforce journey. And also Eve and I were both recently accepted into the Lightning Champion program, Eve as an activation champion and myself as an app dev champion.
Congratulations on that, both you ladies as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great pun, love puns. You know, at first I struggled with lightning and then it struck me.
Oh my goodness.
Feel free to use that. I stole it from someone else. So here's our game plan for today. What we've done is we've kind of condensed the presentation that Alexis had seen at Dreamforce, helping to just fit it into the time frame, but also just taking out some possible extraneous things. So we're going to first start off with talking about the difference between training and coaching and move on to when it can be effective to use coaching. We're going to cover a few coaching tools that you as admins or even managers or users can bring to your organization. We're going to touch a little bit on coaching in multiple directions within your org chart, and then also provide just a quick post-game wrap-up. There are some resources that are linked, and so we can share the slides out at the end of the presentation. If you do have questions or comments along the way, please feel free to type those into the chat, and then either Alexis or Danielle will sort of be monitoring that. But as they mentioned, there will be time at the end of the presentation to also just have open and ongoing discussion.
Awesome. Well, first up, when people think of training and coaching, oftentimes they think they're the same, but they're actually different. See, training is an introduction of skills by transfer of knowledge driven by the trainer. This is when you teach or develop skills specific to a competency or initiative, like being able to teach someone how to enter a lead or how to create a port or how to use the system itself. It's also moments in time where it's structured environment. Maybe you have a monthly call or quarterly call where the focus is on making sure that the information is given. It's like show and tell, where the trainer wants to make sure that they want to share and show the information and how you need to apply it. And then there's you as the person being told, actually using those skills and making it happen. Now understand that that's great, because with Salesforce, we're always learning things. You may have monthly calls where you're teaching people about the enhancements and processes that have been added for your current situation. But when you're doing training, all you're doing is getting this information to help you do your job easier, better, and efficient. And that is awesome, because believe it or not, regardless of our roles, we've all sat in a training. Now, did you know that within 1 week's worth of time, though, 90% of the information is lost? So you want to put something in place that would allow you to maximize and capitalize on this information that has been shared. Enter coaching. Now, coaching is a shift in a mindset. This is when you focus on improving and reinforcing on the skills that have been taught during your Salesforce training. It supports Salesforce training by showing you how to get to that next level of growth based on actions of change. It's an ongoing process geared to refining and finding the approach that will help take you there. It's always a continuous dialogue, and it allows you to hold someone accountable and ask questions that are focused and geared to what they need to do. So with training in Salesforce, you may train someone on how to create or enter a lead. But with coaching, you're going to actually show them how they can take that information and get to that next level of growth and allow those leads to build a powerful sales pipeline for them.
Okay, so we summarized the difference between training and coaching. Let's do a couple of practice reps just to make sure we've really got this down.
Okay, how many of you, it's the beginning of the year, so we made these resolutions. How many of you have heard or have hired yourself a physical or personal trainer? Now, when you think of the physical or personal trainer, their responsibility is actually just to show you how to do what you need to do. So if I'm your physical trainer, I'm going to make sure that you know how your workout will take place, how to do those motions properly, and make sure you're doing the right amount. So as your physical trainer, I'm going to show Skye how to properly do a squat. Now, in doing a squat, Skye, I need you to part your feet slightly apart. I need you to bend at the waist, keeping your back straight. Bend at the knees, not leaning forward. Act as if you're sitting down, then go all the way back up. Don't forget the squeeze. You got to make it work. Now relax. You have now done a proper squat.
Excellent. So the trainer teaches you, but then a coach, as Yves mentioned on the previous slide, takes you to the next level. So if one of my goals is not only to get fit, but maybe to run my first marathon, the trainer is going to help me with my form, make sure my stride is right, I'm landing properly, maybe help with breathing techniques. But my coach is going to really help me to uncover my underlying purpose, define the goals, maybe point out or provide some additional resources and accountability.
Now, next up, we have the one that we're all familiar with, a Salesforce trainer. As a Salesforce trainer, your responsibility is to be able to show your users how to use the tool in order to do their job in their role. You might do this by hosting power hours where you're actually going through the trainings and showing them how to do everybody or give them as a job aid. Your whole responsibility is to be able to give them the tools that's necessary to put some ease to the work that they do on a daily basis.
But as a Salesforce coach, you're going beyond the actual practical application of the training to that motivation. So working with your users to uncover what challenges they're facing, what kind of barriers or obstacles are in their way preventing them from reaching high performance, and then working collaboratively with them to identify resources, change progress or processes, and also help them to just embrace the use of the system and overcome the barriers that are facing them.
Now, with coaching, you need to know when to use your coaching methods. Now, with coaching, you're drawing skills from the coachee so that you can build from it. They have to have a knowledge that they're starting with, and you're just taking it up to that next level. You want to be in a position where you bridge that gap from A to Z. In doing so, this is going to be more conversational, give and take. This is when you're asking questions to pinpoint those issues to help resolve them. As the coach, you want to be able to support and guide the coachee. Now, they're doing the work, and when they're invested in it, it allows you to be able to push them towards their goal versus pulling them towards their goal. Now, at the same time, you know when to coach. There's also a time when you don't want to coach. Now, you don't want to coach if the person doesn't have the knowledge or skills. You can't coach someone on Salesforce if they don't even know what it is or how to log in. Also, you don't want to coach a person if they don't want to improve and they want to stay as is. Believe it or not, there are quite a few people who want to stay right where they're at, and it's okay with that. And you also don't want to coach if you don't have the knowledge or skills to appropriately coach. This can be having the time to invest, maybe like on a major project, or maybe not having enough knowledge on an issue like a large release.
All right, now, as Yves mentioned before, coaching is a shift in mindset. You're not just telling people the things to do in Salesforce, you're creating a collaborative relationship and supporting the coachee as they do the work. And like a lot of other aspects of business, there are some consistent, repeatable steps that you can use in your coaching process. The things we're going to cover are going to be talking about identifying the right goal, uncovering the problems that are keeping the coachee from accomplishing the goal, and then also uncovering the WIFM to motivate them. Wait, WIFM?
How many of you have heard of the popular radio station WIIFM? You know, the What's in It For Me station? See, oftentimes we make the mistake and we think it's about us pushing our understanding on someone when it's really about you understanding the other person's value so that way they can see and adapt to what you're presenting to them. See, in order to do this, you want to be able to have that coaching mindset. While doing this, you're facilitating this two-way dialogue and conversation, and you're uncovering those issues or blockers. But in doing so, you want to be able to provide constructive criticism. You want to be confrontational, not confrontational, which means having those uncomfortable conversations, but actually guiding and gearing them to be able to achieve and overcome. Now, you're probably saying, Yves, that sounds great, but how am I going to do this? Well, you want to be in a position like an onion. You want to peel back the layers. Just like an onion, on the surface, you're getting all the feel-good responses. They're probably telling you, oh, with Salesforce, I'm confused, or they're just closed-minded, or they just don't understand, you know, everything's taking place. But as the coach, you want to continue to ask those questions and peel back those layers so eventually you get to the truth. More importantly, you get to their truth. When you get to someone's truth, this allows you to connect, assign accountability, and set goals for which they truly want to go after. See, now you're in a position that you're pushing them towards their goal. See, I was in a position one time that I was hired to serve as a consultant for an insurance company. It was a small insurance company, but they saw the value and power in Salesforce. And one of their top sales reps, he just continuously, every single day, would complain about how he couldn't use the system. It was complicated, or it was just making his life hard. Well, as the coach, I went in and I just started having those conversations with him, trying to get an understanding of what was really going on. Because I know he had all these complicated Excel spreadsheets that all he can do is plug in a number, and whether a person wanted a 5-year, 10-year, or 20-year policy, it can give him all those numbers so that way he can have a quote. And what it came down to was that he finally told me that the reason why he had an issue with Salesforce was because he created this complicated Excel spreadsheet that made him valuable. And he felt that if I turned around and entered that into the Salesforce system and everyone had access to it, now the company may not see him as value. And since he was older, he thought maybe he would be replaceable. Well, as a coach, because I was able to finalize and understand that underlying issue, we were able to address that. And I was able to address it with the owners of the firm, who actually confirmed with him that they loved his idea and that he was irreplaceable, that regardless of what was taking place, he was of value to the company. And once we got over that, he became a champion of the product. So once again, it allows them to really see the value of what's being offered and how they can be a part of it.
Great. And one of the ways that you can help get there with your coachees is by gathering data. I mean, let's be honest, this wouldn't be a Salesforce presentation if we didn't talk about data, right? So just like you wouldn't expect a company to make an important business change without good data to back up the decision, your coaching process needs to have good data to know where to start, what to try, and to determine what's working and what's not. So how do you help a coachee pick a goal and know where to focus coaching? You use data. I'm going to cover 4 sources of data. These were derived from the needs compass in the book Adaptive Coaching, which is referenced in the resources. It's designed to help you collect a variety of information about the person you're coaching so that you can successfully support them. The first source of data is the coachee themselves. What do they want to improve? What is or is not working for them, or what's preventing them from succeeding? You collect this type of data by asking lots of questions, but you can also have the coachee keep a log of their actions or responses, or just provide sort of quantitative or qualitative feedback. Now, as critical as this data point is, it's not always consistent with what others perceive about the coachee, so it's important to use multiple sources of data. The next one we're going to talk about is other people's perceptions. So these can be the folks that the coachee works with, their coworkers, supervisors, their direct reports, maybe even their customers. Collecting data from these other folks can help to clarify or find any gaps or holes in the coachee's thinking. One example I came across in a coaching situation was that the coachee thought their team's biggest problem was that the team could never come to consensus. They just always went around in circles when they were making decisions. When we talked to other folks on the team, they said, well, yeah, it takes us a long time to get to a decision, but that's because every time we're close to making a decision, the coachee throws another factor in for consideration and we have to start over again. So without collecting the data from other folks, we could have started to solve a problem that wasn't the root issue. 360-degree assessments can be a really great way to collect information from others, but keep in mind that sometimes it can be challenging to get honest feedback depending on the culture of the organization. The next source of feedback is yourself as the coach. As you start to communicate and work with your coachee, you're going to start forming your own perceptions about the issues, challenges, barriers, and blockers that they're facing. Now, of course, you try to do your best all the time, but you're only human. So keeping in mind and paying attention when you may have unconscious biases rising up in your conversations. It could be as simple as, oh, you know what? Last year I talked to John about this problem and this thing worked really well for him. So let's just try that for Yves. And just applying previous tools to the new person may not work if the background or the underlying issues are different. So keeping your own perception in check. And then the last sort of source of data is actual data. And so conveniently, you're probably working on the Salesforce platform and have amazing reports and dashboards available for you. So using actual data about current performance, maybe something like the number of calls logged or the number of insurance plans sold, can help you to identify the baseline of performance, see where there's a gap between current and desired state, and then also help to monitor the progress that your coachee is making towards reaching those goals.
Now, learning in this context by application of knowledge to continuously improve, not coaching. See, the coachee must feel that you can guide them to their goal and that you're helping them. As the admin, you're the expert. Who's the expert? You're the expert. You have all the knowledge, the tools, the resources, and skills to share, and you want to be able to give that information to them so that way they feel empowered. The coachee has to do the work. Remember, they're capable as long as you give them an environment that allows them to do the right and best thing. You want to empower, not implore. Remember the first example of the physical trainer? They're not going to do the squats for you. Now, in doing this, it's a two-way process. There's going to be things asked and needed of you. You want to be able to provide tools that would allow them to become successful. Now, one thing we're talking about is how are you going to track this progress from coaching? Well, here's a hint. You can create a performance log and build it in Salesforce. You can create reports, dashboards, custom objects, which will allow you to capture this information. Also, there may be something where someone talks about some system improvement. Yes, you may have to put in some work. Maybe instead of talking about how to put emails into the system, you may have to activate Outlook for Salesforce, which will allow them to sync those emails over and make it simple. Also, there's going to be a need of time from you. You have to be willing to put in the work in order to coach and assist someone else. And you also want to monitor. You want to be able to inspect what you expect. You can't tell someone to do something and then not follow up with it, because one of two things is going to happen. They're going to look at it and say, hey, I'm not getting the support that's needed. And two, they're not going to do it. Believe it or not, people only do what they expect you to expect.
All right, so Yves mentioned a couple of ways that you can track progress, and this is just a quick screenshot of two simple custom objects that you could build in your Salesforce instance to help support and track the progress of your coaching endeavors. The first one is a coaching goal, where you work with your coachee together to define what they want to work on or improve. The variety of different fields you can have on here would be determined based on your coaching effort and your organization. But a couple of things for reporting practices would be maybe defining a type of goal, having a status on there to be able to track the progress towards accomplishing it, being able to clearly define the current versus desired state, and then also how would that person like to get rewarded when they've accomplished that goal. We'll talk about that more in a moment. On the right-hand side of the screen is a related object for coaching trackers. So to Yves' point about people do what you inspect, not what you expect, you want to be able to keep track of the progress that your coachee is making. And this could be either something the coachee fills out themselves, or it could be something that you as the coach fill out whenever you meet with your coachee. Again, it's important to just keep track of that progress over time. Now, I mentioned a moment ago about how your coachee wants to get rewarded, and one of the coaching tools we want to chat about is recognizing success. Now, if anyone's been to a Salesforce event of any level, you know that there's a bunch of swag, and sometimes when you go to the bigger events like Trailhead DX or Dreamforce, there's actually a quest or a challenge that you have to complete to earn that. And it's so exciting to see a bunch of grown people running around completing quests so that they can get their plushies. It's that reward center in our brain that gets triggered. So this is a really critical part of the coaching process. A lot of times people will get overwhelmed by just their day-to-day workload and not see that they're gradually moving towards that desired state. So as a coach, one of the things that you can do is help to review those goals along the way. Now, earlier I mentioned maybe my goal this year is to run a marathon. As a coach, you should help me break that down into smaller pieces, because you hear about couch to 5K, not a lot about couch to marathon, because there's intermediary steps. So as a coach, you can reward the folks for making those little steps along the way and help them to be able to see the impact of those changes over time. Continuous improvement is also really helpful. So it's unlikely that people are going to do everything perfectly the first time. So making sure that you're able to help your coachee make that continuous improvement over time, make mid-course adjustments. And then it's also important within the policies and guidelines of your organization to define what kind of rewards would be appropriate in a coaching scenario. So maybe you have quarterly or monthly ice cream socials. Maybe you do have some Salesforce swag that you can give to people whenever they've completed a coaching goal. At the very least, as an admin on the coaching objects, you can give them some confetti whenever they complete a goal. All right, Yves, do we want to hop over to game time and give some examples of how we've applied this in the past?
Absolutely. As Skye said, it's game time. We sat here and we talked about the differences between training and coaching, but now it's time to put it in action. Now for this game, we have the individuals, the users are not following best practices. The company wants to be able to have all Salesforce requests come through cases. I don't know about you, but how many of you have ever been bombarded with emails based on things that needed to be done in Salesforce? So the company is now asking, as best practice, we push all that through the system. Now, if you're wearing your admin as a trainer hat, you're probably thinking, oh, well, let me just go ahead and move forward and give everyone a job aid or send them an email for the 19th time, walking them step by step on how to create a case. Well, in doing that, you're not being a coach. Because remember, in coaching, they already have the knowledge or skills, so that's not going to resolve or solve the issue. But if you were to put on your admin as a coach hat and started thinking differently and started asking questions like why, this will allow you to start peeling back the layers and figuring out why you keep getting emails opposed to it being in the Salesforce system. Now, in doing this, you might come up and find out that the reason cases aren't being entered is that users aren't using Salesforce. Or maybe that, yes, they're using Salesforce, but they may not be using it accurately. Or you may get down to the truth in some of them that they truly feel that at least when they send you an email, they know that you're going to reply and they don't feel confident or comfortable about putting a case because they don't know what's going on with it. So at least when you're digging and you get to the truth, you can now create that value and share with them how cases work. And that when they enter it into the system, they can have a stamp. It now can go through a train or a trail where it goes to someone. They can see notes updated and it can actually be tracked. And the great thing about this, you're sharing with them that it's being monitored and that they don't have to feel as if it's in the black hole of information. And also for the company, it's a plus because now they can use this information and maybe they've noticed they have all these fields on things that's not getting used. And now all of a sudden they streamlined some processes and some great things came about it. And who knows, maybe that great thing based on transitioning and streamlining processes has now allowed you to a great bonus because you have effectively used time and showed the company how they can do so as well. So in this example, it truly shows about how it could be a win-win situation, but in order to do so, you have to get to the truth. So that way you're solving and addressing the right thing at the right time.
All right. In our second example, we're going to talk about another way that Salesforce users may not be using the system properly. I know a few of us have encountered this before. So in this case, we're going to talk about poor user adoption in the example of the Salesforce team wants all interactions with clients or donors to be logged in Salesforce within 1 hour of the contact. So if you're sending an email, if you have a meeting, if you have a phone call scheduled, all of that should be logged in the system within 1 hour of that point of contact occurring. But as many of us have encountered, we've got team members who are not logging calls and meetings and activities in Salesforce. Now again, if you were looking at this from the admin as a trainer, you could be saying, oh, well, maybe people don't know how to log an email or log a call, but you've already trained them on that. There's plenty of resources. We need to shift over to being a coach and figuring out the real reason why they're not doing that. Now, when you start asking questions, the first answers you might get might sound like, oh, quicker for me to make a sticky note. That way it's right there in front of me on my computer. I know what to do. I can follow up on it. You keep asking those questions, though, digging a little bit deeper, peeling back the layers, and the answers might start to sound a little bit more like, it just feels really impersonal. Like our clients are the lifeblood of our organization, and just entering these data points, it just feels so impersonal and clinical. All right, well, now we're talking about feelings, so we're probably getting closer, but keep digging. Now, in this example, what came up was that the users felt like if I log all of these interactions in Salesforce, then this is going to put my job at risk. Anybody else could pick up this client and run with it. Anybody else could pick up this donor and ask them for that next major gift, and then I'm not going to be as important to the organization. Similar to the example that Yves used earlier. Now we've hit the root concern, and now as a coach, you can help to explain why and how Salesforce can help them. And in this case, it can actually address all three of those concerns. By using Salesforce to log all of these contacts, your users have a single place to be able to enter, find, and work with their donors or their clients. Ensuring a continuity of data and reporting can actually improve the experience with their donor, and then having all of that information available and improving those outcomes can make you more valuable to your organization and less likely to be replaced. So in this case, it's a win-win-win. All right, so we did hint a little bit earlier about coaching in all directions. I don't know about you, but I have never quite worked at an organization that has an org chart just like this. Most likely, as an admin or a super user, you are not the person who gets to mandate and direct what everybody does in Salesforce. So until there's an organizational chart where the CEO reports to the system admin, it is going to be important for you as a coach to know how to be able to coach up, down, and across in your organization. So here's a couple of tips. The first thing is to consider what kind of coaching encounters are going to work best either at your organization or even for specific individuals. Formal coaching encounters are usually scheduled time slots, and they can be weekly, quarterly, monthly, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever works best. But it's a time when you can sit down one-on-one with your coachee and work through their concerns. Casual coaching encounters can be as simple as adding coaching questions to your normal Salesforce administration by walking around routine, or by working them into meetings that you're attending. Finding your allies within the organization is also a really great way to start coaching in multiple directions. As Yves mentioned earlier, it's important to work with folks who want to make changes or want to improve. And by building those successes, you get to expand the reach of the coaching program. Also keeping in mind that users in your organization have different needs at different levels. So a C-suite user is going to have a very different experience and needs from Salesforce than an end user insurance rep would. If you don't feel comfortable coaching at the director or VP or CEO level, either reaching out to others who have more comfort at doing that, or again, building on those successes and letting folks who do have those experiences or comfort level at those levels come in and join the coaching program. Also, going back to, you got to lose the just if your excuse is you're just an admin. As we said, you have access to all of the problems, all the issues, all the resources, and you are in a unique place to be able to really maximize your organization's use of Salesforce. So drop the gist and be confident in your ability to collect the information and then return suggestions for meaningful changes.
Now, in our post-game wrap-up, to bring it all together, we have to understand that with coaching is a shift in the mindset, and you're building and focusing on the skills that have been taught and improving it to help them get to that next level. Also, in doing this, you want to be able to solve the right problem, and you need to ask the questions. How many of you know of a toddler, or do you know what a 2-year-old's favorite 2 words are? Their favorite 2 words are no and why. Well, I don't want you to be a toddler, but I want you to flip it and use that mindset, and your questions need to be know why. Know why a user isn't entering information into the system. Know why they're hesitant to build and get to that next level. Know why they're complaining about situations. When you start asking those questions and you want to get to know why, you're peeling back the layers and you're acting as a coach and not a trainer. Remember, being a coach can be formal or as casual as you like, and that you want them to be able to do the work. They can do it. Allow them to do it. And of course, you want to monitor, measure, repeat, and celebrate all that has been accomplished. Now, with that information, that will take you with user adoption from just sharing and teaching to actually having active people who want to apply this on a daily basis because they now understand what they're going after. They have your support, and more importantly, it's allowing them to shine at what they do best. Now, Phil Jackson, one of my favorite coaches, he says it best. The most we can hope for is to create the best possible conditions for success, then let go of the outcome. The ride is a lot more fun that way. And that is so true. When you start to see so many yous doing what they do best, it makes it a great positive environment.
All right, thank you all so much for having us here with your user group today. That is the end of the presentation, and we would usually sort of take questions from the audience, but I will also be sharing the resources here, and then wanted to turn it over to Danielle and Alexis to be able to help facilitate the ongoing conversation.
Awesome, thank you so very much. And this is all going to get posted, so you will have access to this link later. And we can post that into the collaboration group a little bit later as well. But thank you so much to Skye and Yves for that awesome conversation. Do we have any questions that are coming just for Yves and Skye at this point?
I would love to ask, Danielle, I know that you have some questions sort of queued up, but I'd love to ask from the folks who are on the call, besides the examples that we were using for illustration purposes, can you think of any cases or use cases in your organization where you think coaching might make the difference between someone struggling and being able to succeed?
Oops.
Hi, this is Evan from Exceed Consulting. I know as consultants, you know, we kind of have limited time on projects, and we kind of do training, not the old-fashioned way because it's not that old, but making like a kind of a linear PowerPoint, taking screenshots of everything, and it's hard to, you really need to get the product owner involved, the stakeholders involved. It's keeping up the excitement. Maybe it's setting up, if it's a new ad, if setting up like an email campaign or an email cadence, and kind of giving them a framework to how to talk to users and how to kind of introduce some of these things. And I think a lot of the recommendations in these slides are great. It's about coaching and knowing the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish, not just, you know, feeding them information. So.
Absolutely. And I think as a consultant, we're in unique position to both use coaching skills ourselves throughout the course of a project, as well as encourage the end user or the product owner on the client side to be able to adopt some of those practices for ongoing success.
And as a consultant, one of the things is that oftentimes when we go in, we're seen as the expert. So the individuals who we're meeting with, they're expecting us to give them information or enlighten them with some tools that will help them get buy-in from their users. So just in that short amount of time, regardless of how long that project is, when you start going in and asking questions about, yes, it's great that we're implementing this project, but what's the overall goal? What are we trying to achieve? What are some issues that have been brought up to you based on conversations with people? And you start getting those, I call them touchy feelings. It allows you to create a plan that'll work that way. Because then now you have more of them buying into what you're sharing because they see the value and that they feel like you're giving them a solution that's helping their company and their problem, opposed to a general answer for everybody else. And when you have that, you can do some powerful things, because now they want to implement it. Now they see that people are having successes. Now they see that momentum is taking place and they like that feeling. And now they're empowered to continue doing that as well.
I am also
So I have a question. Okay. Does somebody else have something? So I have a question about who is best to set up as coaches, right? And so within, you talk here about admins as coaches, but what if someone doesn't have, does that mean they have to have an admin certification? Can they be a Salesforce BA? Are those, great coaches? And do you have it as one person, or do you have a team of people? I could see a team being really valuable. So what are your thoughts on that for companies where maybe they have a large team, but not everyone is necessarily certified, but they're all BAs? What do you suggest?
And I would even add on to that question a little bit before you answer. So when we bringing it back into the insurance industry specifically, there's a lot of agents, a lot of people who are using Salesforce in general that are in the distribution channels that aren't necessarily within the organization. So if you have your non-captive agents, how are you coaching them? And how are you working with your community users as opposed to just your internal people that you mandate?
I would suggest the one thing, just like when we talked about when not to coach, you say, believe it or not, there are some people who want to stay as is. You want to focus on those who want to be in that role. You want the ones who are thriving and want that information, because they're going to be the individuals that are supporting what's being taught, and they're going to take that lead and initiative. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the admin, because I've seen scenarios where the admin is just a job to them. So they're not really dedicated or focused. It's just something to do. But then you may have someone who's the BA that is taking on this. So just like on a project, you look for who the business sponsor or the champion is, find that champion in that group and focus on them, skilling themselves up in terms of coaching and being able to share the information and how to use it wisely. We're dealing with individuals that may not necessarily, an agent, as you stated, that may not necessarily be internal, the same way that you would ask internally who would like to step up and be a coach or would like to showcase or enhance those skills, or you look for your super users, look for those super users or individuals in that same capacity. They're out there. They just may never had the opportunity that someone said anything to them, because they think, just like we say, you're just an admin. They're thinking, I'm just an agent. I may not be on that level or with that company where they, may see me in a particular way, but they really do have those skills that can help them be successful and be a good change agent for others.
I would even say, in addition to Yves' points, that it doesn't necessarily need to be a sort of designation that a person is a coach. At the very minimum, incorporating coaching techniques into your business practice, regardless of the level or the role, can just really shift the outcomes. So if you think about, the difference between telling and asking, right? So if I'm an insurance rep and I'm talking to a potential customer, I could jump right into telling you the benefits of a particular plan or program. But if I don't know what's important to that customer, I'm just sort of shooting in the dark. So switching that to, asking those questions, understanding how to get down to what's important for the customer slash coachee, and then being able to use that kind of mindset to drive your sales process. So again, it doesn't have to be like a particular agent or a particular manager is designated as the coach at your organization, but being able to incorporate the techniques of coaching into how your work is done can really help to bring the benefit to multiple levels of the organization.
I love the
that's why
comment that you made about going into and making sure that you're actually working towards that end user. I feel like a lot of clients that I work with don't necessarily go and ask the questions to their end user. They just say, we're going to push out this functionality because it's the information that I need and I want, not necessarily what's going to help them do their job better. So as an agent perspective, as you're trying to go and give them tools and tool sets, and your log a call example was 100% spot on. We have a lot of people who don't want to log a call, or they don't want to put that information in because there isn't any reward to them to do it. It is, at the end of the day, information that the internal operations team is using to help with data, but the sales agent doesn't necessarily get that information, or the, whichever department that is, if it's in the underwriting or it's in the call center, in the claims department, et cetera. So being able to help incent and understand how it's going to help them and teach them how it's going to help them at the end of the day.
Yeah, and a great example, this came up in the case of a fundraising team, but I think it's directly applicable to an insurance rep. What we did in a coaching exercise was working with a few people who had identified they were fundraising members of a team. I really want to hit my fundraising goals this quarter. Like, I've struggled before and I really want to get there. And so in coaching, we worked with them to make sure all of your activities are logged and all of these other expectations are completed. And at the end of the quarter, they were able to see in Salesforce reports how many more donations were closed on contacts that had X number of communications versus the number of donors who didn't make donations, and those calls or the activities or the touch points didn't happen. Once a few members of the fundraising team were able to say, look, when I logged all of this in the system, I was better able to keep track of who I talked to, who I called, who I had a touch point with, and the people who had at least 5 touch points over a quarter were 90% more likely to make a major gift donation compared to those who only had 1 or 2 touch points. They were able to take that data and go back to the rest of the fundraising team and show those folks why this is important and how it can help you to reach your goals, and it's not just mindless data entry.
Yeah. And that just kind of goes back to that slide that we talked about, that with them, what's in it for me? Because oftentimes people are pushing what they want to present opposed to actually getting the information from the other. So that way, if I tell you, all you have to do is frame it around that. So that way I'm seeing the value with what you have to share. So I think that's the biggest hurdle that a lot of people have to get over, is just understanding, yes, we know you want to make this deal, or we know that you want to implement this, but truly, how is this impacting someone else? And how could you bring them along with the process so that way they see the value with what you have to offer?
And to Evan's point, again, about a consulting perspective on that, a lot of times when we're working with our customers during discovery, we're learning about how do they do it in their legacy system, or how do they do their existing business process. And that's good, and it's important for us to know, but we shouldn't just be recreating an old business process in Salesforce. We need to ask those questions and peel back the layers to get to the root of what they ultimately need to accomplish, or what their expected outcome should be, regardless of the process, so that we can build it more effectively in Salesforce. And the more effective it is, the better and easier user adoption is going to be.
Know why.
I think that's why it's so important to make sure that you're expanding that stakeholder analysis right from the get-go. So it's not just the person who's asking for the project, it's not just the people who are in charge. It really is all of those levels, and it really is getting at what would make you use this, what is driving you crazy in your job today, and addressing those pain points, because you really don't get anywhere without the what's in it for me, because so many people have so many tasks that they're doing, and it's like, cool, leadership wants it, but I have to do this, this, and this, and my job is out in the field, and I have to go talk to all of these people. When am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to do this? And it's solving the problems for them and with them, and being able to iterate as things maybe aren't resolved as cleanly as you might have thought they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies. We are pretty much at time at this point in time, so I appreciate all of the discussion, and this was a fantastic presentation. We will be definitely sharing it out to the greater community over the collaboration success community out there. So make sure that you guys look for that to be posted. Just a quick couple of additional announcements for some upcoming meetings. We do have the future of work in financial services. This is a very long meeting. We are combining it with the other FSC group that we have out there globally as well. There's going to be, it's a two-part. There'll be an in-person from 6 to 9, actually at the Silverline headquarters in New York City. So if you are in and around that area, you're more than welcome to join. And then we also have a virtual component to that as well on April 30th. There will be a 45-minute presentation on FSC for insurance and just how Salesforce in general is being used in the Salesforce world, as well as a couple of additional presentations coming in from the financial services team to talk about overall financial services industries and Salesforce for that. And then we will also have another virtual lunch and learn on May 13th. We have some people who are going to actually be able to come in and talk about agent portals and do some demos of some cool things that they have created to, again, piggyback on what Skye and Yves have talked about here. We talked about the coaching and the tools to mentor your agents in order to get them so that they're actually being productive. So you'll actually be able to see some of this in practice, which is really cool. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Some helpful links for you here that will be posted again as well. We have our success community, the financial services community, because we are specific to insurance, and always the Trailblazer groups. So this will be posted as well. And just thank you. Thank you to Alexis. I wish you the best of luck coming up in your new WIC group in Fort Wayne. And please feel free to stop by and chat with us whenever. And then Yves and Skye, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and chat with our group today. Thanks again to all of you wonderful trailblazers out there who are here in the insurance world, just trying to make insurance a better place overall in an economy. So with that,
thank you all.
Thanks all. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.